Okay, welcome everyone to our Social Gastronomy in Practice with World Central Kitchen. Really excited to having one more, actually our very first 2024 session with a very unique organization. And our history actually goes way back into the beginnings of both Social Gastronomy Movement and World Central Kitchen. And since the beginning, actually, World Central Kitchen was part of one of the members of SGM. And eventually with the growth and the success, now we have a much stronger strategic alliance as well. And we'll hear about that towards the end of the session. But I'm really excited to accompany one of our members on this beautiful growth and at the same time alarming because when we talk about conflict and emergency response, there's a growing risk, there's growing need. So the growth of World Central Kitchen, I guess, is linked to that need as well. And so I'm really curious to hear a little bit more about the model, how it started, and where we're at now. And really proud to call what World Central Kitchen not only a member, but also a strategic ally. And with this being said, I'm also going to hand over to Nusungwe, who's going to hold the session for us today with Juan Camilo Jimenez from World Central Kitchen. So just as a reminder, the Social Gastronomy in Practice is there for us to uncover social gastronomy models around the world that have tremendous impact in local communities and have the possibility to even be scaled further. So it serves as a deep dive, but also an inspiration for anyone that wants to pick some of the tools, some of the learnings or models to replicate possibly in your own community around the world. So excited to learn a little bit more with Juan and Nusungwe. So letting you two take over from here. And thank you so much, Juan, for taking the time to share with the community.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Nicola. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Nikki, for that intro. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like Nikki mentioned, today we are spotlighting World Central Kitchen. And representing World Central Kitchen is Juan Camilo, who is serving as the Community Outreach Manager for Latin America at World Central Kitchen. Thank you, Juan, for joining us. And we won't waste much time. We'll go right into it because I'm excited, and I know everyone else is excited to just learn about the work of World Central Kitchen. So Juan, please tell us about your day-to-day work around social gastronomy with World Central Kitchen, and why did you start in the first place?
Thanks, Suge. So I think that to provide like a good context about my day-to-day work and about World Central Kitchen, I'm going to use a slideshow to show a little bit about like why World Central Kitchen and what we do. So if it's okay, I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to take this time to provide some context and ideas that I'm pretty sure are going to help to have other questions around. So basically, what we do and what we believe in World Central Kitchen is that wherever there is a fight, so that that hungry people may eat, we will be there. We started work almost 14 years ago. We were founded by Chef Jose Andres, as you probably know, and we are a nonprofit that, as Nicola were saying, we are first in the front lines, providing meals in response to humanitarian, climate, and community crises, and these last days also responding to conflicts that sadly are happening around the world, like we know the Ukrainian conflict, the conflict in Gaza, and other part of the world. So basically what we do at World Central Kitchen is that when a disaster happens, we mobilize with something that we call the urgency of now. We want to be fast, we want to be efficient, we want to be not the first one, but we want to be with the first ones there to start cooking and serve meals to people in need as soon as possible, because we know that a meal can have a huge impact and it's going to be the top priority to someone that probably is starving for a few days. And we do this by partnering with organizations on the ground and activating a network of this gastronomy industry. And that is restaurants, food trucks, emergency kitchens. And this is just possible working with them. And with them, we work providing comfort meals to the survivors of disasters after like that happens. And we do this thinking in how to support regional economies. So we always try to prioritize buying all the local ingredients to cook with the communities or directly with the families involved in it. So we're trying to work with the local industry, but at the same time, support the local economy. I'm going to show this video because I think it answers a lot of questions and also will help me to show a little bit about our work. So it will be 2 minutes. Let me know if you can hear it.
Category 4 hurricane slamming into Florida's southwest coast this afternoon.
Firefighters are battling a devastating forest fire near Yosemite.
Explosions that rocked the Ukrainian capital.
An aftershock of,
feed everybody as quick as you can. Don't tell me you're getting ready to do it a month later. Don't tell me you are waiting to do it until you have everything ready to do it. It has to be urgent. Food and water is now. We didn't have enough trays, we didn't have enough plates, we didn't have enough knives, we didn't have enough hands. But we began. Anything else will take too much time. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, today. We do it with locals.
We're not victims. We're just neighbors helping neighbors.
We overcome every obstacle, and if we cannot overcome the obstacle, we go around. Here we are, and we'll come back tomorrow and the day after until you are okay.
لكن رغم كل اللي شفته في الحرب وهدم بيتي وتشريدي إلا إني كمان بازدياد قادرة إني أساعد وأعطي الناس مش بس في وجبات الطبيخ تعبي وعرق جبيني إني مساعدة كمان إني أساهم وأساعد في الناس.
And that's what makes World Central Kitchen so special. We have to go.
Category.
So basically applying this model that we will be talking more about it in detail and how everything started, we have been providing around the year 350 million meals in different modalities around the world. And this is just possible because we have a huge network and we have the commitment of people supporting World Central Kitchen. And this happened, like as was saying, more than 10 years ago after the earthquake of Haiti, where we were there and we saw how a meal was important and how taking the right approach for nutrition and meals was something that was not happening in disasters before. And after 80, we started to develop the World Central Kitchen model until we developed to a more organized model with the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. And after with the Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, it was also for us another milestone and a moment where World Central Kitchen is what it is right now. We can say that after Maria and the Bahamas was something that shaped the World Central Kitchen that we are today. Of course, the COVID pandemic came with a lot of challenges and another way to support because it was not a 3-4 weeks, 1 month, 2 month disaster. It was a pandemic with a lot of restrictions, but also with a lot of people on hunger and where a meal was going to make a change. So we reinvented and supported local communities around the world. At the same time, we were supporting disasters and conflicts during the pandemic. And with the invasion of Ukraine, almost 3 years ago, like we're entering in the third year, like we learned how to support and work in conflict environments, and we accepted the call and the motivation and the duty to work and support people during conflict. So that are like highlights of World Central Kitchen. And like our pillars to relief response is basically 5. We provide hot meals that are fresh and culturally appropriate to vulnerable communities that are facing food insecurity. So what we're looking is to make the most delicious meal. And that one can be, as happened to us, a plate with like half the portion to be rice, because it's what people love in the country, or a lot of salad, or it's happened to us in Turkey that yogurt is part of that. So we understand what is like a hot and fresh and culturally appropriate meal, because we don't want to apply like same recipe around the world. So we are doing that. And we work alongside with community leaders. We understand that in every community, in every country, in every street, there is someone that leads, that want to take the initiative, that want to support the community. And we are not going to go there to pretend that they don't exist. Like they are already saving their lives, they're already leading and saving the community. We want to work with them to support them and giving another tool. It's like, okay, you are doing a great work. Let me help you with meals and with the resources to keep doing that great work. So for us, it's really important to work with those communities, and also to employ local staff. Like we invest in the impacted communities, and like if we can buy in that community, like the vegetables, the meat, the eggs for our production, and if we can hire, and that way we try to hire local staff that was affected by the disaster or by the conflict, and they can be a part of our project. We do that because we believe that we can have a huge impact and multiple impact involving people that was affected and feeding the same community. That also is part of a healing process. So we are doing that. And we work with chefs and with the gastronomy industry. And that's why it's so important to be part of this call and in this movement, because this community of chefs on the gastronomy community are the ones that understand the logistics and everything that happened there to meet the unique needs of the community, because we don't know when the next disaster is going to happen. So what we need to trust is our networks, and who is the best people for that? The chefs. And like we have a vast network supported and resources, and happy to say that the gastronomy movement is also part of that, one of the networks that help us to do the work and make us like to do what we do. So this is possible, and like this is like our admin part, but like it's like we do this because we have a huge support system. Like, of course, we have the most visible part, that is the relief operations, the disaster and crisis response. That basically is my role. But in the back, we have a huge support system that is doing donor relations, that is doing communication, that is working with engaging with chefs and becoming part of the Chef Corps network that I was explaining later. We have, of course, human resources, we have data and technology, we have safety and security, finance. And I think it's important to say that, because sometimes it's like, okay, how they do it, and they're just there. No, like what you see is just one part of the organization, but in the back we have a huge and strong support system that make things happen on the field. And like I think that helps to answer our question of like why we started, and like why maybe World Central Kitchen is related to the social gastronomy concept and idea. And I think like what makes us unique is because we work with chefs and restaurant partners. So we believe, and we have proved that chefs are to be one of the most connected and trust members in their communities. They know where the people are, they know the government, maybe they know key officials in the country, they understand the community because maybe their employees are from affected areas or themselves have been affected. So working with chefs is like perfect. And also because the chefs also treat the cows and are strong problem solvers and understand the urgency of now. Like our operation is a huge kitchen and nothing like a busy kitchen in a busy restaurant with all the cows, all the urgency to get the best meals, get solutions. So we feel that connection with the chef industry. And also like we work with restaurants because they are the ones that are ready to cook. We are not ready to cook anywhere. We become ready after a few days, but when we arrive to a place, chefs and local restaurants are the ones that have the equipment, the supplies, and the people to start cooking. So we work with them. And I think like it's important, and that maybe answers like why in this case, no Juan Camilo, but World Central Kitchen started to work around like what we can call social gastronomy or the disaster relief related to food, is because basically when a disaster was happening, everyone was calling, for example, doctors to take care of health and nurses. If they need to rebuild homes, they were calling architects and engineers. But when people need to eat, we should be calling the cooks and the gastronomy industry. And I think it's something that sounds super logic, but I think we can agree, we can discuss later that maybe a few years ago, it was not like something, okay, yes, we need to call experts to cook in order to cook people that are in the middle of a disaster and a crisis. So I think that that's why we started in World Central Kitchen, because we saw that no one was calling the chefs in an organized way and taking the lead in something that is a priority in a disaster or in a daily life. People need to eat. So I like this quote because Jose Andres always saying like everyone is part of World Central Kitchen. Maybe they just not yet. So I think like everyone here in this call is part of World Central Kitchen, and they will become official part of World Central Kitchen when something happens sadly and we need to connect. And like we do this weekly, like thanks to our relief and team and our volunteers. So we may establish a kitchen or operation capable of bulk meal distribution, and we will need staff and volunteers to prepare the fresh meals in a central kitchen location or multiple kitchens as we sometimes do, or partnering with local restaurants that people can recommend it. We also look and engage with restaurant partners, like probably in this call or in this podcast will be people that have restaurants, and they say, okay, if something happens, like maybe we will look for you and you will become a part of World Central Kitchen supporting us as restaurant partners. And yes, we work with restaurants to support the local economy, and we are not looking for donations or for like they put in extra. It's like, okay, if you are able to produce meals, we want to support you buying the meals, and we can provide them by free. And also we have chef corps members that maybe in the call we have chefs from the industry, and like we have a network of hundreds of chefs around the world that are part of this network. That basically are our first ambassadors, sometimes are our first contact in a community. And there's people that are from the industry that maybe they are helping the community already and want to become a part of a platform to share the ideas and the projects that they're having, or also they want to support and mobilize resources for World Central Kitchen. So they want to do a fundraising, they want to have a special menu for World Central Kitchen, or just they want to have and give visibility to World Central Kitchen. So that are some of the ways that people engage or are part or will be part of World Central Kitchen. So what we do is like what we call the World Central Kitchen way. That is basically what our North Star, like what we follow. That is like World Central Kitchen strives to beyond merely providing food in thoughtful and comforting and dignified manner. And we do that including showing respect to the culture, beliefs, and religious practice of the community. For it's very important, like understand that if we are working in a country that is under Ramadan, how we can do this better. Like, so we know that we are not going to be there providing lunches, or we are going to be providing like breakfast. No, what we need to do is what is culturally okay, what they need to be present and be in the Ramadan. So maybe we're providing something that we call Ramadan boxes, that we give the tools and supplies to break the fasting when they want to break the fasting. Or we understand that it's a community that was affected by a tsunami. Maybe we don't want to provide fish because they will generate a trauma because of the tsunami. What you see in the beach and in the community is the fish that the ocean brought. So we try to understand, and we try to be as more culturally okay and get all the practices of culturally beliefs and religious. And we try to do when it's possible, that is almost all the situation, to be have a balanced meal, understanding of course nutritional standards, but also what is culturally okay. For example, in a country, a huge portion of rice or of carbs is like what is culturally okay and considered nutritious. Maybe for other standards not, but we try to apply that there. And when the possibilities is that we can provide a fresh and whole meal, we are going to do that as always a priority. In some conflict zones, that's a challenge, and we can talk about it later, like when it's not okay or safe to provide a whole meal, that we cannot guarantee that is going to keep hot and it's going to be keeping in like safe conditions. But yes, like we basically is what we do. And if you want to follow, and happy to share, like we have this documentary, you can follow, understand more the work that we do, that is we feed the people. And also we just launched a cookbook that is with recipes around the world that we have cooked with these local communities, with local chefs around the world during disasters. And it's like an amazing book that will like share with you stories from the field, and also like you will be able to taste the world like with a recipe that maybe change a life, and you will read the story. So just want to share this as a context. I know that like for the beginning maybe it's like a lot of information, but I think that will help us to get more questions and contextualize the session. So back to you, Songa.
Yes, absolutely. Juan, thank you so much for that overview of the operations of World Central Kitchen. And like you mentioned, I'm sure it's opened up our minds, right? So now we're like, okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's get more specific. Okay, so I guess now I would like to know what drove Jose and the team to act in the face of an emergency, whether in his country, in your country, or for a neighboring country. I know you mentioned talking about urgency and wanting to be there on the scene first. Is that one of the reasons that drove them to act in the face of emergency?
I think like one of the reasons was like we were seeing, and like I see we, because I'm part of the organization, but like Jose was seeing that no one was calling the chefs. Like a disaster happens, and okay, we need to open the schools as soon as possible. We need to have hospitals. We need to have mental health support. We need to like open the roads again. We need electricity. We need gas. And they were calling all the experts. And I think like what Jose said was, oh my God, like why no one is thinking that all these people that was affected by disaster and the people that is coming to support, they need to eat. And cooking in these conditions and for this amount of people is not an easy task, and it can be a risky task. If you're cooking for thousands of people, like something good can end at the end in something bad, because you can have like problems with the warm or the temperature of the meal, or with the quality of the vegetables, and etc. So I think that for Jose was a call, and for World Central Kitchen was, okay, there is something happening that no one is taking the lead and spending time to think how's the best way to support communities with food during a crisis, an emergency, or conflict, and how do it right. Because we know that people were sending, and organizations and the governments were sending boxes of like canned meat and canned vegetables or fresh product, or like ready to eat meals. But at the end, you are seeing like you arrive to a place, and I don't know, like people here have been probably in disasters. And like if someone receives a box with meat or with vegetables or with canned products, it's probably that the first few days or weeks of a disasters, most of people will have electricity, water, fire, a proper space to like have that in a fridge. So that becomes useless. Like people like they cannot cook something. So I think we understood that we can provide a relief, and what I like to say, like space to breathe. Like someone in the middle of a crisis, in a conflict, is okay. We are here, and we can take care of the meals for a couple of days, and that's what we do. Like we go to a community or to a place, and we don't just go one day. Our model is going every day, every day, every day, until you're okay, as Jose was saying in the video. Because what we want to do is like, we will take care of the meals, like one meal per day, usually, sometimes two, according to what is culturally okay and logistically possible. But we will take care of one huge, good, nutritious meal, so you can breathe in the middle of a disaster crisis. Maybe you can go to the funeral of the people that you lost during the disaster. Maybe you can take time to clean your house, to rebuild your house, to go to the government programs to get your like money that they are giving to people affected by disaster. So I think that what's the idea is like we can provide meals, and we can do it better. That is happening, and that was possible just empowering and working with the communities. Jose always shared a story that where he was cooking beans in Haiti, and he was doing the most amazing Michelin star beans, and for him it was perfect. And he was cooking with a local community, of course, but he was taking the lead because he's the chef and cooking this. And some people for the community, some like women for the community say like, this is not the way we eat beans. And he was like, why? These beans are delicious. These are my beans. I'm Jose Andres. These are Michelin level beans. And like, he didn't say that, of course, but like, it's what do you think? And he like, no, the way we cook beans is like, we blend the beans and we fry them and we do this and this. And he learned and he cooked with them. And that day, Words in the Kitchen changed and was shaped. Like, we are going to listen and work with the communities, because what we want to do is not just feed them. Because if we just want to feed them, it's like, these are the beans. They will like give you with nutrition and you will have a meal, but we don't want to do that. Like, we want to make a meal that someone will say like, this was like the beans that I have 2 weeks ago before this hurricane came to my country, or this remind me of my mom that died in this earthquake. So I think that from that day, like we say, we need to do that. And maybe with that, I answer your question. That's why we keep doing what we have, and we keep working in World Central Kitchen and trying to become better and working with the communities, because we understood from the beginning, and we understand every day that like a community understand what they want, and a meal cooked with the community and with input of the community, we have an enormous impact in the community that was affected by a disaster or a conflict.
No, that's really amazing. I don't know if you saw, but I kept smiling throughout, because it's like, wow, so many insights about just the power of food, and how you mentioned about giving a space to breathe, right? Like during all, like whenever there's something going on, there's all this going on around us, but then that hot meal, it gives you a space to breathe. It's like hope. You're giving people hope through the hot meals that you're serving, right?
Yes, and like, yes, and like asking again the question about why maybe Juan Camilo, my colleagues, Jose Andres, are involved in this, is because we're privileged. Like, we arrived to a place after like a disaster, and we were not affected. And it's okay and totally normal and human to be in shock, to be like panicked, to not understand what to do, what's going on. And it's okay for the local organizations, the community, even for the government. Like, after a disaster, no one is prepared for that. Like, even if you are prepared for that, it's so human to be in a state of shock, because many front lines will open. If you are like the local government, the local authority of the village, like, you will need to supply water, medicines, you need to take care of the elderly people, of the dead people, and everything open. It's totally normal to be in shock. So I think that we do what we do, and I, like, personally do that because I recognize that I have a privilege. I am okay after a disaster because I have the privilege to fly, to arrive to a place. So I can say, okay, we can take the lead on this. I can help the community to breathe because I didn't suffer what they are suffering. And I have done this in the past, and we can have this an emergency room. This can become like an emergency room situation where we bring a team that was privileged, and we need to understand that was not affected by disaster and can focus on help this community.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you for sharing. So now we're going to go into the system. What does it look like, the system that you built around emergency response? What does it look like on a practical level?
So in a practical level, like I briefly mentioned in the presentation, we have like a team structure. We are an organization with multiple departments, and we are based on Washington, D.C., but we have like teams deployed around the world and like ready to cover all needs that can happen, because like we understand that what makes us different is the capacity to be in a place as soon as possible, because we understand that the first hours are the most critical hours. So in a practical level, what we have is like a monitoring. First, I will say like the preparation and like be ready to act if something happens. And this call and this movement is part of that preparation. Like, we need to be able to have networks that can support us, people and know people in a specific country, region, community that can be a game changer. Because after we have this time to prepare and to build relationships, we're monitoring. We are like daily monitoring what's going on around the world. Like, we are trying to see the news, get input from our like network, like, hey, this is going on, like fire happened here, we have tornadoes, we have an earthquake, something is happening. So we are monitoring disasters, emergency conflicts around the world. And like we do this like multiple times in a multiple ways. Like we are monitoring newspapers, but we are also talking and speaking with local contacts in the area. And for example, if it's a disaster that you can track, for example, like a hurricane is like one of the few disasters that you can predict in some way, because they start in a place and they go, move, and they become bigger, and you're seeing, hey, it's becoming category 3, 4, 5. So we are able to monitor and track the possible areas of impact with hurricanes. And for example, if we know that a hurricane is going to be a category 4, 5 hurricane, and it's going to be straight to a highly populated area, we try, and most of the cases, we fly before the hurricane arrives. So we are there when the hurricane arrives, and we can respond faster. So we try to arrive, for example, when the Bahamas happened, we were like, hey, where is going to happen Dorian? We have teams in Canada, in the United States, in the Caribbean. So we were ready to do that. That's just possible usually with hurricanes or with some volcano eruptions. So we monitor these disasters. And when we're seeing that important part of the population is going to be affected, and maybe the access to food is not like okay, or it may be a challenge because there will be a shortage of electricity, of water, or maybe massive destruction like can happen with a tornado, with a hurricane, or an earthquake. And when we have those indicators that we're seeing basically that a plate of food, that a meal can have a positive impact and can help the community to breathe, and we're seeing that maybe there is not enough local support, or maybe the local and national support systems are going to be overwhelmed, we say we go, and when we decide to activate, and we call that we are activating in response to the disaster in Chile, like I was, and we can talk later about one more ago. And we deploy as soon as possible to get boots on the ground as soon as we can. We like to understand what's going on, not by waiting the reports or the final news. We are not just waiting to see how many kilometers were affected, or how many people are dead, or if the government called for help, or if the roads are open, or if there is a hotel to stay. No. We like to go there and collect that information by our own, because we know that in a time of crisis, and we have learned that there is a lot of information and there is not a clear picture. Right now, we have a lot of fake news and everything. So we like to go there and understand by ourselves the situation and collect all the information that we need to operate. So when we arrive, what we try is to assess the need as soon as possible, and it's what we call scouting. And we do that as soon as we arrive with food. And what we do is basically the easiest thing to do. And I'm sure we have many chefs in the call, in the podcast, and in this video. Like something that is easy and safe to do and to cook is sandwiches. And like at the beginning, like people think that we just deliver sandwiches, because when we arrive to a community or a country, and if we have the opportunity to collaborate in the future, like we're ready, because what we're going to ask first is like where we can get sandwiches as soon as possible, or what is culturally similar to a sandwich, because something that can have more time, like in a car, like it doesn't need to be warm, it can stay for longer. Because when we go to community to ask how they are, how many people is in the place, if they're affected, we don't like to go with empty hands and be like the traditional organization, like with a iPad, with like a notebook asking, hey, how are you, how you feeling, from 1 to 10, and get all this information and say, we will be back. No, we like to go there and provide some relief. And we know that sometimes, a lot of times actually, when we arrive to a place, people have been starving for a few hours or days without water. So we try to arrive with sandwiches, water, and fruit. And with that, we ask questions, and we are like, okay, we're up to this place, maybe it's ground zero of the tornado or a hurricane, and start collecting and understanding the dynamics of the community. So who is the local leader? Is there a group of women that is leading this place, or they're already cooking? Or maybe it's the president of the neighborhood, or maybe it's the school that is taking the lead. So we try and we start collecting information as we are providing something that is like a quick relief, that can be sandwich, fruit, and water. And we collect that information, and we assess that, okay, there is a need, and we are going to support this community. And we have multiple teams of scouting that are going to different areas of the disaster zone and we are getting all the information like with coordinators, and we have the geo-reference of these places, and we are getting, okay, in this place, we're going to be working with Miss Juana, and Miss Juana is going to be our point of contact. Miss Juana, you are taking the lead. We want to help you with meals. How many people do you think you can reach? How many people live here? Okay, you need 200, 300 meals. We take that information and we start like collecting the data and the need of the communities. And at the same time, we are looking the ways to provide hot meals as soon as possible. That's our second priority. We arrive and we want to arrive and understand the situation as soon as possible. And later, at the same time arriving, we know that there will be a need for food, and we want to provide that need the best way possible. So we are start to find way how to cook meals and provide hot meals. So it can happen that we start to build our kitchen. For example, if we are in a situation where the destruction is massive and maybe there is not a building or like an open kitchen facility to provide hot meals, so we need to start building that kitchen. Or most of the times also we are looking for the people that are already cooking or to have the capacity to cook, or maybe need a little bit of a push and support to cook again. And we start working with restaurants. So we explain them what we're looking. We agree on a price. We agree in standards, because we don't want just like a regular meal. Like we just want a meal that has this portion of protein, this portion of carbs, of vegetables. And we start working with these people and also building the kitchen. And from there, we start making deliveries, and we're doing daily deliveries to communities affected. And what we're looking is like that persons have like the assurance that every day around maybe 12 to 2, that is what is okay in that country, or maybe at 4 p.m., or maybe at 5 p.m., or maybe at 11 a.m., they will receive 200, 300, 500, 1,000 meals that they need. And we will be there again and again. So basically what I explained to the restaurants that we hire or the cooks that we hire in the country is that they're working for a restaurant with all the tables and the reservations confirmed, because every meal that we cook already have an owner. And for us, it's like someone is paying for that meal, even if it's free. So I always tell my team, like, you are selling free meals, because we want the meals to be on time, to be hot, and to have the quality. And we want also that the community is able to provide feedback and concerns about the meals. So basically, it's a restaurant operation. So when we want people on board of this as cooks, as a restaurant partners, they need to understand that it's not a regular meal. You have an enormous privilege to be working in the restaurant that has all the reservations and the tables full for the next days. And that's what we want to provide. So I think that's what we do. And we keep doing this for the next days. It can be for a couple of days if things start to become better, and like you have the solutions and electricity is back, water is back, etc. It can be a couple of weeks if the recovery is low, but we are monitoring, and we have these field teams that are the community outreach teams monitoring the situation and seeing indicators of how the things are going. And as we were there probably the second day, we can see how things are changing. So we see if things are better, the same, or worse. And we're seeing that other organizations are supporting when the government is taking more the lead and have the opportunity to do this, or the communities are back to a degree of normality, is when we make the decision to say, okay, we are going to close this operation. And we are very, very honest and transparent with the communities. When we arrived that first day with sandwiches and water, it's like, hey, we're worse in the kitchen. We're going to support you for the first days. We are focused on the early days of the emergency that are the most critical days. And when we want you give the space to breathe of this, we understand that for some communities, the most critical days can be the next 2 years or the 2 years before the disaster, if they were already vulnerable communities. But what we're focused, and if we want to keep doing this around the world, is that keep this in this emergency phase. And it can look in 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks, depending the disaster, or in some conflicts, it looks like 1 year, 2 years, sadly. So when we monitor and we see that the community is in a better position, we plan a responsible close out of the project, and we communicate to the community like, hey, so we're seeing this, as we told you, this is going to happen. And in 5 days, in a week, maybe in 3 days, usually we give like a week notice, we are going to provide the last meal. So communities are able to prepare themselves to be ready to cook again, so they can start saving the money to they get the meals, etc. Because we don't want to be there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and leave people waiting the next day for the meals. No, we are super transparent and honest and responsible about our intentions. So we also help the community to prepare to be without us. So when we close, that's what we do, and we like close our kitchens, do the inventory, and go back to our countries and HQs, and like that's where we start again the process of monitoring and be ready for the same disaster, for other disaster, or sometimes like we are in multiple countries at the same time. That is usually the majority of the time we are responding to more than one disaster, conflict, of emergency. Last year we were in 8 places at the same time, so it can become a little bit crazy.
Oh wow, that was a very detailed narration of the step by step and how you just basically run the different operations. And I know you mentioned Chile earlier with the wildfires that broke out. I know you were there and you actually collaborated with one of the SGM community members. So could you briefly tell us what that experience was like?
Yes,
on
of
the
course.
ground?
So like sometimes we work alone because we don't know people in the area. Like we work alone, but of course we are always working with local communities and people there. But like most of the times, like we're to a place and we don't have like a point of reference, because like maybe it's our first time in the country or in that area. But in Chile, last year, like thanks to this network of social gastronomy movement, we connected with la Fundación Gastronomía Social, with Rafael Rincón, that probably people will know. After we were like exactly 1 year ago, the team was in Chile responding to some wildfires. And when we were leaving, Fundación Gastronomía Social and Rafa contacted us and were like, hey, we are Fundación Gastronomía Social, we're part of social gastronomy movement, and we're in Chile. We have multiple like food related programs in the country, and also we do emergency response sometimes. So we would love to connect with you. So that again, like the networking, the preparation, we took a call. It can be seen similar to this conversation, and we learned more about each other. They understood what we were doing and what we do and how we do it, and also we understood what they were doing. So we finished the call and we're like, okay, as we always say, like let's hope we never meet again and we never have a call again, because that means that something happened. But if something happened, and sadly Chile is a country with like a high level of disasters, we will know that we can talk again. And 6 months later, like a massive flood happened in the south of Chile, and I was like, hey Rafa, hey Fundación Gastronomía Social, like, do you remember that we have a conversation? Yes. Okay, we're going to Chile and we want to work together because you know the country, you know the gastronomy industry, you know the banking system, all the admin work. And what we created, what we have like a specific partnership like for the project. So we designed a joint project to support the communities there, and we provide like a small response of 50K meals for around 20 days. And like it was a good opportunity to work together and to get to know better both organizations. We closed the project, and 1 month ago, like exactly almost 1 month ago, like a terrible fire happened in Viña del Mar, Chile. Like more than 200 people died in Viña del Mar due to the fires. A lot of communities were affected, and of course we detected that in our monitoring and alert system. And okay, I called again Rafael and was like, hey Rafa, how are you? You want to active again this marriage? That it was a joke that I told him. Okay, you want to be a partner again with us, because we want to respond and we want to do it with you, because we believe that local organizations also have the capacity, the knowledge, and the tools to do it. So we again created a partnership where like we were providing a lot of expertise and capacity to quick respond and all the scale up, and also like the resources to do it, but also having a partnership with Fundación Gastronomía Social with all the culinary aspect of understanding what Chileans like to eat, what is the best time to cook, where is the best place to cook, and facilities, because they know universities that have massive kitchens, or because they get the vendors. or something is hard to us is like how we pay in the local system where there is a lot of problems. So we were hiring them as an admin and financial support. So we worked in Chile for almost a month. Like I returned to my country 2 days ago, and we provided almost 141,000 meals in around 20 days. We supported 49 communities and working with more than 26 restaurants, 3 kitchens, and it was like an amazing operation where we saw the importance of this networking and these connections, because that make the work of both organizations easier, but most important, that help us to be more efficient and fast to provide and relieve the community that was very, very affected. And we were possible to provide hot meals in the second day, start the day with 1,000 sandwiches, the next day with 500 meals, until we reach 10,000 meals per day. And that was just possible working with partners and people from the social gastronomy movement.
Yeah, so that was a very great brief on the importance of partnering with local organizations. Thank you for that. So I can only imagine, one, that such operations come with challenges, right? So could you just tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced and are still facing, and also what have been the learnings?
Okay. I think that like some of the challenges are like how you build teams in places where you never been, because we don't know where we're going to be next. Like, of course, we have our team, but like our international team, we try to keep it small because we understand that most of the answers and questions are going to be locally. So, but also we don't have a pool of people in every town and village of the world. So I think building a team is a challenge, but also it's a huge opportunity. But as a good opportunity, it's not easy. So like, because you need to build a team with people that maybe it's the first time working for an emergency response, or maybe you bring someone not for a kitchen, of course, but other role that have never worked with the food industry, for like a logistic role or for like a transportation responsibility. So building a team and also doing that in a different culture or language than yours is a challenge. For example, like if you are in a country where like no one speaks English, or English is not the first language, or in my case, Spanish is not, okay, that's like another level, because maybe we will need translators, maybe we will need to find other way to work. So I think like building teams, and especially in different cultures and languages that the one we have, is a challenge. I will say understand the context of a place. Every place has the unique dynamics. It can be the politics of a place. Like it can be like, in this case, in this place, maybe the government is a little bit not a lot of democracy, or maybe human rights approach here is different, or maybe they have a strict policies around guidelines around food security and sanitation of a place, or maybe the local like dynamics of a community with gangs and problems around there. So, and you need to learn that really quickly, because you're going there just for like the most critical days, but also you want to do it fast. So you need to develop like a skill and get around with the right people to be able to play with those dynamics and the context of every place you're working, so you can do it fast. Also, we'll say that like dependent disaster, but like huge disaster like hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, is that we go to places without knowing what we're going to face. For example, like I was able to respond and lead in Acapulco our response for the Hurricane Otis. That was a 5 category hurricane. It was like the worst hurricane in Mexico in the last years. And communication was zero for the first 2-3 days. Like the land access was closed, air access was closed, and we knew that we needed to be there. So we had a team in the Mexico City, and as soon as we were able to do it, we sent a team in a convoy to go explore. But like sometimes you don't know if there will be a place to sleep, if there will be electricity, or other things. So I think like all the logistics side is like a challenge, because we are not waiting to get all that answers, because if we are waiting for get all the answers, we will be too late. So I think that we learn how to navigate with that, and basically arrive to the place and learn that, and maybe you will learn that maybe there are no hotels and you need to find a place to do camping, or maybe that we will need to have our own filtration system for water. So I think that part is something that happens usually in the emergency response phase that we are doing. And yes, like I think like being disconnected with the real world, because if you arrive to a place like Acapulco, there was not connectivity for the first 2 weeks. So for example, I was leading a community outreach team that I was sending to scout all these places and assess the need. And once they were out of the hotel, they were by their own, because I didn't have a way to send a WhatsApp. Of course, I have the GPS, but like I didn't have the way to get a call. Hey, we have a problem with the car and we are 10 kilometers away. That are the challenges that happen even with all the technology of the GPS or a sat phone. Sometimes they don't work in a disaster. So you need to manage a team where like, okay, you go and we will meet again here in 8 hours. If you're not here in 8 hours, I will assume something is happening. So working around it is always a challenge.
I see. And any specific learnings from those challenges?
I will say that the importance of networks and strong relationships. Like we have been able to overcome all these challenges, and that's why we are still working and doing more work is because we have huge and powerful networks and strong relationships that at the end help us to get access to the road that is close, or maybe help us to become the first helicopters to land in an area because we got a call with a friend that is a friend of whom, and maybe they spoke with the president of the country of the of the people of the army. So the importance of having powerful and important connected networks, and that people know you before something happens, because it's easier for me to call someone from this call or from social gastronomy movement and ask for something before, like, because they already know who we are and I don't need to explain what we are. So I think that important of like understanding that you need to have your networks and connections in your area of influence, and for us it's the world. I will say other lesson is trust the community, listen to the community. They are always right. Like they probably are already dealing with the situation before you arrive. They are already cooking before you arrive, whatever they're cooking, probably. And sadly, it's not the first time that they are dealing with a disaster, a problem. Usually the areas that get flooded every couple of years. The countries and the areas that get hurricanes, they get hurricanes every time in a while, wildfires the same. So listen to the community. They will know what is the best for them. And a specific example is like they will know what they like to eat and how and when. So listen always to the community and follow their lead. The other one I will say is act fast, like, and learn from that. There will be not the right moment and the perfect moment. You need to act fast. And of course, take the time to learn. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say, okay, I didn't do this, and maybe this is what's going to be better. But act fast and take the time to learn, but not plan and act, because you will be losing very, very critical time and people will be affected by time. So I think act fast and don't wait for the perfect moment. Like if you're working on this, there will be never the perfect moment. Never. And we can open a debate of what is the perfect moment definition, and everyone will be giving a different answer to the perfect moment. So I think that, like, my advice will be, don't wait for the perfect moment, just do it, because that will be the perfect moment where you are arriving to a place and you are having an impact, helping someone, in this case with food. That's the perfect moment. So that's when you understand that you are doing the work.
Amazing. Those are some very, very great practical tips, and I hope someone out there was taking some notes. So we have actually come to the close of this part of the session. And to close, we have one more question, which is, what does social gastronomy mean to you?
Okay, good question. I think, like, if I go straight to what I'm thinking is like the power of food and how food can impact lives. I think, like, we sometimes believe that food is something that happen and we're privileged enough, it's something that will happen at breakfast, at lunch, and dinner, and it's part of our daily life. But I think that seeing how food and the role that food takes in the moment of a disaster, a crisis, or like a really bad moment for a community, is understanding that the power of food, it can be around social gastronomy. And I will say also how you change like ideas. Sometimes we think that food is around like luxury or a need to eat, but I think also we sometimes forget that like food, and if we add social gastronomy part of that to the food, is how food can be comfort, and even how food can be part of a healing process. So I will say for me that social gastronomy is also part of a healing process, because you can connect with like food communities, you can bring back memories, you can help them to overcome a situation. And if you add that social aspect to our food, I think going to be perfect. And you can do it that in a fancy Michelin 3-star restaurant and get all the emotions, but also you can and you should be doing that in the middle of an emergency, disaster, or helping some vulnerable communities, and using the food as something to heal, I will say.
I love that. Okay, so thank you so much, Juan, for taking the time to just be with us for this hour and just giving us insights into the operations of World Central Kitchen. So we've come to the end of this part of the session. So now we'll open for the Q&A from the audience.
Perfect.